This is Julien, and I'm here with Owen, and what we're gonna crack into here is a video that we just shot with Jay Samit, author of Disrupt You. And the question I start by asking here is, with everything changing in the world right now, okay, things are shifting, there's technology that's evolving every single day, job security is dead, okay, if you still believe in that, you're fucking insane, okay, the job you have now is going to end, you're not gonna keep it until your little retirement. College, okay, who knows if that's valid anymore. The question is, are you going to be a person who embraces, okay, all of this change and end up on top? Okay, are you going to embrace the disruption? Are you going to disrupt yourself, the world around you? Or are you going to stay in your little comfort zone, stay complacent, just wherever it's comfortable, like keep doing whatever I'm doing, with the little thing you got going right now? Are you going to stick to that and ultimately end up fucked?
I think this talk is going to blow you away because Jay Samit is not just a guy who gives information or, is an information marketer, but this is a dude who's actually been in high level and executive positions in Sony, EMI, Universal, and has really been at the top levels of huge corporations. And if you can imagine how stubborn many of these big corporations are and how far they can fall when they don't heed the future as it's happening, Jay is somebody who's actually been involved in making switchovers and changes in these industries. So he's extremely compelling. And really what I truly enjoy about a guy like Jay is that, he's in his mid-50s, he's seen a lot, and he's got the chops. So if you're ready to just watch somebody who's just got the fucking chops and knows what's up as far as the idea of being willing to let go of your old beliefs and patterns and to embrace the future and actually win, okay, so that your life can look a million times better because of this, rather than being scared, lay back, enjoy the talk. We just really received a lot of wisdom from Jay. We just kind of let him go. It's amazing. You're going to enjoy it. Let's do it.
My parents had a mom and pop restaurant. And the best lesson that my father taught me is they worked very hard. And when you have a restaurant, it's 7 days a week of always thinking, there's always some problem or whatever. And you go to sleep because you're exhausted. You come home and then you have to do all the paperwork, and miserable every single day. And it was like this monster that was part of life of there's this problem, there's that problem. And when I was in college, my dad came up and said, I'm thinking of retiring, but do you want me to keep the restaurant so you can do this when you get out of school? And I'm like, are you kidding? Every day it's been something that you don't like. The greatest gift you gave me was to show me that I better do something that I enjoy. Maybe I'll be more successful, maybe I'll be less successful, but it'll be my choice. And when you get to later years in life, and you talk to people, I have a partner who's 94. When you talk to older people, they have more regrets for the chances they didn't take than the things they attempted and failed at. Because it's that, why didn't I? Why didn't I ask that gorgeous girl out? Why? Oh, if she would have said no, might be the same place that I am. But what if she had said yes? We were lied to. We were told that if we do good in school and go to the right schools and do everything, there's this happily ever after.
Scary.
That there's this big company and you show up and they'll take care of you, and then there's a pension, and then you'll go play golf. And Fortune 500 companies, it's the 60th anniversary this year of the Fortune 500 list. 57 are still around. So that myth is gone.
That's a great stat. Wow.
We got rid of the whole pensions for everybody when Wall Street conned everybody into, 401ks that can manage their own. What they didn't say is all your 401ks that you can't touch have huge loads of fees, and very few people have a safety net. So the majority of Americans are 90 days from the street. Globally, it's even more shocking. If you make $30,000 a year, you were part of the 1% globally. You're in the top 1% on this planet. Let that sink in. We still have tons of people without electricity. We have tons of people without, 1 billion people a day struggle to get water. Water isn't like this luxury. I'm not talking about, would you care for the Evian? I'm talking about you dehydrate and die. So a good part of the day is walking to carry the water back. So if you're not struggling, why not figure out how to add value? What can you do? If you're an artist, you can create art. If you're a scientist, you create. And we're now so interconnected that almost anything you'd want to do, you can put it together a team and start a business, you know.
You know, I liked what you said about seeing your parents as an example. And I remember I was talking to my dad once. I used to hate school. I hated it up until the later years when I could do independent study or study what I wanted. And I remember I said to my dad, like with an honest question, I was like, Dad, I hate school. You know, does it get better with work? And he looked me right in the face. He said, Owen, work fucking sucks. This is the best. Enjoy this while it lasts. And my dad had like a good job for Canada. So I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, so this is like the best. I don't like this. You know, like I just didn't enjoy school. So for me, that was the motivator, to the point where, I mean, probably getting a little out there for you, but for me, it was like, I viewed it like I had nothing to lose, because I viewed that type of existence as so miserable. Like I would try to like drink beers with my dad and watch the game and, you know, the barbecue baseball thing, like, and I felt like there was something wrong with me that I couldn't connect with that. Now, as I got older, I was willing to take the risk. And for me, like, it was just the most natural thing in the world. Same thing for him, you know, most natural thing in the world to push forward. I never even had a thought of quitting. But what scares me is sometimes, like, you know, yourself or myself, we can give advice to people to, you know, to take the risk and go for it. And they do that, but they still coast. Like once we made the choice to do this type of thing, my business partner could have gone into investment banking. I could have gone into law. So I came at this the same way that I come at being a partner in a law firm. Or Nick came at it like as if, you know, he was an investment banker, but we took our crazy little niche and we took it that seriously. But I see a lot of guys that will, like, you know, come to LA and then they think that hustling is like going out to a club and networking, and they don't realize like what's actually producing the income or research or things like that. So I think that like if you're going to do it, go for it, but then do it.
An entrepreneur would rather work 80 hours a week at a job they love than 40 hours a week at a job that they hate. I mean, once you commit to a lifestyle of building and creating a business, it is a lifestyle, and you're going to work harder than most people are willing to for a few years of your life, so you can live the rest of your life like most people are unable to.
For me, it's, I moved from Switzerland to LA. If I fail, I'm like done. It's not like I have a safety net, I'm homeless on the streets. And because it's like real life, I'm homeless, there was that drive. But yet nowadays with social media, you don't really have to make that same jump, and it's not as real in terms of the consequences. So you can just like, oh, I'm gonna go network online. If you don't fully hustle, you kind of half-ass it, you don't really see the direct consequences.
I kind of did things ass backwards that I wouldn't recommend for entrepreneurs. I had 2 sons very young, when I was really young. And it was the greatest motivator. You talk about being homeless, you know, being homeless with 2 little kids would absolutely freak you out. And I remember having a Cub Scout meeting at the house. I've never told this story. And the guy comes knocking on the door to repossess the car. And I'm like looking at the guy with, you know, all sincerity, go, do I really look like a risk? I mean, dude, I'm just, you know, and by the grace of God or whatever, guy gave me a break. And, you know, I was maxing out my credit cards to build my business. The worst form of capital. Do not repeat that. Now, back in the old days when we were in covered wagons and stuff, you didn't have crowdfunding, you didn't have VCs, you could go to bank, which I never understood, that if you had assets, they'd lend you money. Well, if I had those assets, why would I need your money? You know, but those gatekeepers are gone. You can now make a short video and instantly raise unbelievable amount of wealth. And at the flip side, the idea of the IPO, which used to be a company like Microsoft going public for $100 million, you're now not going public with that. There are people that will fund you with $1 billion and several $1 billion. Look at Uber at the $40 billion, while you're still private, because the market can't absorb these types of businesses. So the whole paradigm of how to start a business has changed. And it doesn't have to be that everybody's full-time employees and everybody's in a building and everybody's, you know, singing the company song in the morning. It is really a matrixed the same way that your social life is, so that you can take talent from all over the world. You can come up with a 3D printing business. I talked about this the other day. God forbid a child's born missing fingers, okay? They wouldn't get a prosthetic arm until they were in their teens because of the cost. But now with 3D printer, you can make one really cheaply. And so at 4 or 5 years old, and so these young entrepreneurs went and got a license from Disney for Frozen, for Iron Man, for Star Wars. Now the kid can have the coolest arm in elementary school and go from being the pariah that nobody plays with, how does that change the trajectory of possibility for that child? Yeah. What new confidence will that person have? And that's a simple business where you don't have to have the 3D manufacturing equipment. That can be outsourced by other places. You can just set up a new business and tie these resources together in new and novel ways. So we're going to see many more of these small niche businesses, but a niche with access to 6 billion people.
What do you think of the world right now? I mean, so many new opportunities, but then so many new challenges.
So on a worldwide basis, we have a huge challenge with 2.3 billion millennials. To put that in, that's one generation entering the job force that is more people than were on the planet when my parents were my age, okay? There will not be jobs for them. So if you have masses of people without jobs of the same cohort and of an age range where they're also filled with testosterone and filled with hormones, you have a number of problems. And so in the countries that have the large young populations, it's hugely destabilizing. Inner cities, Greece, Spain, the Arab world and the Arab Spring wasn't about religion, race, and culture. It was really about massive unemployment for young people. Then you take climate change, regardless of what you want to believe on the science of it, it is changing. Warmest month in history was this last month, and guess what? Next month will be even warmer. But you had 5 years where no food grew in Syria. Government can't subsidize food to keep the poor pacified. There's no jobs to keep them active. So it just takes one person promising you anything. When we penalized the living daylights out of Germany after World War I, it just took one lunatic to promise every car in every garage, and 80 million people die. So the flip side is, but wait a second, you can be sitting anywhere on Earth and be tied into the same knowledge base and launch a business much cheaper. 99 Designs, great plug, great company. I used it this week for a client to make a logo. It's a website where you put up a reward, anybody can make a logo and somebody gets it. So somebody got $1,000 from me. 500 people competed, amazing work. It was somebody in Indonesia. What's $1,000 US worth to them as a motivator compared to somebody that might be sitting in Chicago right now and saying, I don't know if I want to do the effort for $1,000. But that's who you're competing against. Unless we create more job creators, we will have more disenfranchised people. It's a pure binary outcome. And our schools don't know how to do it because we're being taught by teachers that went into a system that is the antithesis of entrepreneurialism. Is teaching passing down the facts that came before, or is teaching people how to learn for themselves and find information? So for most of mankind, before we had the printing press, the brightest people in the community were those who could recite back the whole Quran, could memorize huge texts of the Bible. That was considered learning. A parrot can do that. And we now are still teaching people to spit back facts on tests, as opposed to, why do we have failing economies, right? How does our currency work? What social problems could blockchain, the basis underneath Bitcoin, solve today? How could we bring prosperity by using technology in ways that people haven't thought of? Transparency is at the heart of raising the standard of living for people globally. So yeah, there's a million things that blockchain can do. There's a million things that you can do with 3D printing, with Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles. But on the other side, those same technologies, I can give you the case of how many hundreds of millions of people will lose their job over the next decade. Lawyers and accountants think they're all safe. AI can replace them. That highest paid guy that knows all the tax code for the big corporations, he doesn't know it all and he doesn't remember 100% of the time, but an AI program does. So white collar jobs, middle management, going to be flattened.
So do you feel like the major skills are things like nuanced thinking that an AI or computer can't do? Creativity, ingenuity? Like, what are some skills that people...
So obviously everything in the creative side, okay, for as much as I can envision the future, I'm not envisioning a world where the machine is coming up with the next hit movie, okay, or the next song, or the cultural touch points that make life worth living. Solving problems, you have to understand problems that are outside of the domain of what a machine was programmed for. But AI, on the other hand, can look at the stock market and every transaction in a way to be absolutely accurate, where I can see a world where you push a button in a matter of minutes or hours, one person wins. You know, maximum concentration of wealth, because it can be completely done rationally. You know, and we saw this as computerized trading started happening in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that, you know, where your connection was, how fast you could get, and everything changed the whole dynamic. The Eddie Murphy trading places of guys yelling with pieces of paper, that disappears. The whole facade of societies, we still ring the bell. I've done that at the stock exchange, and there's nobody on the floor. It's a piece of software. So why does the stock market stop at a certain time? We don't adapt to change when those that tend to control it today don't want the world to change that they control. And it's not any one sector or evil secret society of Illuminati or anything.
Definitely not.
Definitely no.
I actually believe that Illuminati thing is a way to avoid working, because you're like, oh, Illuminati's got me, dog. Like, you know.
Nobody could ever keep any secrets
Exactly.
to make any of these things
Exactly.
happen. It's virtually
the day that I meet anyone that can keep a secret, I'll believe in the fucking Illuminati. The day that I can get my business to run without all the bullshit, what, there's some Illuminati out there that like figured out, like, they just read every self-help book, like they really studied the 7 habits of highly effective people, and they got it awesome, and now they run the Illuminati. You know what you're saying, what you're talking about reminds me of, though? You ever seen the show Game of Thrones?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the White Walkers, right? Like they're all like fighting it out, like in their little world underneath, and then the White Walkers are coming, and they don't even know that they're coming, right? Like there's this whole other reality coming, and people are kind of caught up in their little disputes and their focuses, and they don't realize that all this change will sneak up on us.
I'll give you a huge opportunity that people need to focus on. So for your generation and younger, you grew up, we were called digitally literate. You know, it was just part of life, okay? You know, I learned typing on a 1924 manual typewriter. You know, everything we had to guess what an interface was. I made, you know, video games in the 80s and stuff. There was no, here's how the last games were. It's like, what would be fun to do that this machine can do? So we didn't necessarily do everything right, but we learned. But everything that you've learned today has shared the same consumer experience, the same interface. And when we start getting to an augmented world, when we start talking about virtual reality, the whole way we interact with machine and man and each other is no longer a graphic user, GUI, and a mouse and a touch. I mean, it's up for grabs. And I've seen some of the simulations people are creating, just a real simple one. If we all had glasses and we're walking around, and I'm about to jaywalk, and the whole street just goes red to tell me, oops, you know, like the light changed, don't step on the red, you're going to get run over. I mean, that's pretty helpful. But then when you start layering in, you know, 100 brands with offers popping out of every store and da-da-da-da-da, it reminds me personally of what it would be like if you could take somebody from the Amazon rainforest, put a blindfold on them, take it off, and they're in Times Square. Their head would explode, right? They wouldn't know how to process. But all of us make it through Times Square just fine and figure out how to get pizza at Sparrow and go see a show. There's a huge opportunity to figure this all out. There's nobody that has a head start. In my TED Talk, I make the joke, you know, where do social media experts, Internet of Thing experts, you know, Bitcoin experts come from? They're people that printed business cards and said, I'm an expert, and then fought and worked their ass off to defend that turf and turn it into something. Anybody watching this can jump in and be the top of that field. And we're talking VR will be $200+ billion business in healthcare, in defense, in architecture, in entertainment, in just the next 5-6 years. So there's tons of opportunity. But when did we stop teaching people how to prosper? It was never society's intention to teach people how to prosper. You know where IQ tests came from?
No.
It's to figure out who would be cannon fodder. It was the military to say, okay, you know what? We're going to teach you how to do something. Here's a bayonet, run.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the sole purpose, right? So we had this whole system to classify and put us into a structure that already existed. There's no giant successful person that you can name that didn't end up being a job creator. You can't do it alone. And there's lots of people that aren't set out to be creating a business and doing the extra work and the heavy lifting, and would like to just have it figured out for them. But we've made too many people in that second category that there's nobody employing them, because the job, and I've been a public NASDAQ company CEO, your job is not to employ the masses and make society function. Your job is to make a profit, which anything that can be automated will. And I'll give you the most clear example that should hopefully shake everybody's out of their complacency. 100 years ago, 1900, in the US, half the population was on farms, which meant it took 50% of the people to feed the other 50%. We had the Industrial Revolution, they got irrigation, they got tractors. Suddenly we didn't need all those people, but Henry Ford and everybody manufacturing took all those people. But now those factories have been automated. And so now today we have 1.6% of the population not only feeds the other 98%, we export food to the rest of the world. 1.6. When you now go that the rest of the jobs are going to get down to we're going to need about 1.65% of the people, that's leaving 90+% with no job. So you can either come up with, as Switzerland has proposed, let's have a basic income and we'll support the 90% and everything. And that really works on Gilligan's Island, okay? It works on a very set thing. You know, Thurston Howell, I know nobody knows these shows, but watch it up, it was a great show. But you know, in a very controlled environment, you could do that. In a world where we have 80 million refugees and global change is going to make more nation states fall apart, because if you have a whole country, I don't care how great the country is, but no food grows there, it's not going to be inhabited, because that's one of the basic things, water and food. So we're going to see more and more refugees flowing into systems that will not be able to support that. So what's the answer? The answer is, unless you think every problem on earth has been solved, there's room for new ideas, new inventions, new creativity, new fortunes to be made, or it doesn't have to be about fortune. I had a round table like this recently, and a very esteemed colleague said, he's putting up a prize, what's the most number of sustainable jobs you can create with $1 million? So a different way of looking at it. We all play video games, think your favorite video game, it turns out they all work the same, which is you suck, you die, you figure out where, you go back, you try it again until you get better and you get a little further and then you die again. But at the end, if you've made it to the end state, whether it's Mario or Call of Duty, okay, you've mastered all the techniques and you are at 100%. Agreed? Okay. In school, it's you missed half on that test, you got to see you're a C student, you're a putz, you know, life over. As opposed to everybody could graduate knowing 100%. You don't move forward until you learn that piece of knowledge. We all learn at different paces. It's not, we teach school as if there's a scarcity of knowledge. Only 10% can get the A. These are the only ones that should move ahead. So I had the weird experience of life of starting off dyslexic, not speaking, put in, when they had the reading groups, you know, the 3 reading groups, the first grade teacher, the Eagles, the Hawks, and the Mud Hens, right? I was being told, very young age, life's over, you suck, you will not pass go. So yeah, everybody's worried about me. My mom said she wasn't because I made these amazing things with Tinker Toys. So she always figured there was something going on, I just couldn't get it out. And what happened is, as the school years got on and stuff, suddenly I went from those classes to the highly gifted classes, which was the same, you know, you're out here, we'll just throw all kinds of stuff, you know. Hey, it's 40 years straight, I haven't used trig yet. But you really start seeing that they're classifying people for all the wrong reasons. And there's studies, and I've looked at them and I touch on them in Disrupt You, that if you tell a kid he's super bright, he'll do really well. The most famous example, and you're from Canada, was if you look at great hockey players, they were all born in January, February, March.
Yep.
Okay, and you go, is it, you know, the age of Aquarius, the moon's in the dipping of, no, it's this. The cutoff in school meant that those kids were a full year older, okay? So they were bigger. So they were better when they played hockey at 6 years old, and the coach said, you're really good, Julien. And they go, well, I'm good at this, so I'm not going to spend more time investing in this. And fast forward, they end up becoming professionals.
It's that, and it's also that, like, when you, because I grew up playing hockey, actually, funny enough, and I was one of the smaller kids playing hockey. So if you're going for the puck and you're winning all the time, your brain's focusing on getting the win and not playing to not lose. Even what we teach in dating advice, we'll teach guys to go for girls that aren't intimidating at first, because you go and you get a little bit of luck going, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. And it builds that winner effect, and it changes the chemistry of your brain. And then you keep building on it.
And that's the key thing that you hit on. And there's studies on this. You can rewire your brain. And it's as simple as having a positive attitude. It sounds like tree hugger, but read the book and there's actual science behind it. If you start off each day with the positive affirmation, today can be better than yesterday, and I have the power to make it so, you're literally releasing endorphins on your brain. It lights up the synaptic nerves like lights on a Christmas tree, and suddenly you will close more sales, you'll be more creative, you'll have new ideas, as opposed to, as a culture, we've come into the let's complain. So there's the people that come into the office every day, oh, this sucked, you won't believe what happened, oh, the traffic, and you shut down, and so that opportunity could be right in front of you and you won't see it. So it's all about changing that brain. So when I was that small kid, I was smaller than all the other kids, I sucked at sports, I wasn't the last one picked at the team, they just didn't even bother, okay? So fast forward today, I know nothing about sports, I have never watched anything, I just don't have that in my thing, because as a small kid, I had negative reinforcement about it. Okay? So what we do with kids at the youngest age, what we expose them to of what it means to be successful. Successful isn't about money. Successful isn't about being smarter or right. Successful is about overcoming. A child learns to walk by failing. School systems have to teach people to overcome and congratulate them for overcoming. And then they can decide. Because the new world isn't about having knowledge that you carry around. It's having access and knowing what to do with new information and how to process it. Because unless we can look at the new variables, everything you've learned goes out of thing. And the example that I use for people that just don't follow this is, would you go to a doctor my age that told you before you came in, I haven't learned anything or read anything since med school? You'd run for the hills.
What I love about what you're talking about, from business perspective, of course I love it, because that's how you create survival, jobs, and what we need. But even from a, you could call it a spiritual perspective or inner perspective, whatever you want to call it, I like it that it forces you to see reality as it is, to let go of realities that no longer exist, and to embrace the new, and to flow into the next moment.
And if you want to go on spiritual, there's only two states in nature, dead and growing. There isn't, the grass gets this high and says, I'm just going to chill, right? And if you aren't growing, then by definition, you're dying.
And yet so much of our modern society is trying to make us believe that you could be that grass that just stays the same.
Yeah. Where's the joy? Where's the challenge? Where's the fun? Growth is where you learn to appreciate life. There's only two things you need to succeed in life: insight and perseverance. Everything else can be hired. How many lines of code did Steve Jobs write in his career? Right. But Woz will tell you, without Steve, there wouldn't have been Apple, okay? And Apple was a failed computer company. People forget that. They were hanging on by had Bill Gates not, written them a check, they were done. So he said, where can I take what we do to different market and see if we'll be successful? Let's go after the consumer electronics market with the iPod. Oh, that worked. Let's go after the phone market. Let's go after the car market, okay? Let's change different stuff, Apple stores, let's get into retail. You know why they got into retail?
Why?
Because Sony had enough force with the Walkman to virtually block anybody from carrying the iPod. He couldn't get distribution.
That's a great story of not embracing change. What do you think Sony should have done different?
How many hours you want this thing to be?
It's amazing too how it falls off the map. Like, I used to love going to the Sony store. I loved it.
Wait.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, is there not a Sony store in this mall?
In brand identity, number 2 brand in the world, $100 billion company. And the change there, which people forget, and it happens to every company, is there's something very unique about the founder generation, the founder of any company. That was the person that took risks, okay? Bill Gates and Microsoft one day showed up and said, uh-oh, we missed this thing called the internet. We're going to take 1/3 of Microsoft's employees globally and reassign them to this internet thing. It's going to be big. A guy who was hired by the board to run a company can't suddenly walk in one day and say, I'm going to take 1/3 of the company, GM, you know what, I know we've been making cars all this years, but now we're going to go in and we're going to do an Uber on our own. It just doesn't happen.
You know when this happened for me? I'm sitting with my friend old Jay on New Year's Eve. And we used to always watch the ball drop on New Year's Eve or something like that. Maybe it was Christmas, I can't remember, it was something like that. and he starts showing me these YouTube videos. He shows me the Epic Squirrel, Star Wars Kid, and all these videos, right? I didn't even know what these were. And I leave Old Jai's house with my girlfriend at that time, and I'm like, did we not watch TV all night? And then I go, oh shit, YouTube's gonna be massive. And I was not good at producing YouTube videos, and I sat there in my house talking into the camera, trying to train myself to feel like the camera's a real human, like, hi there, it's Owen from Real Social Dynamics. How are you doing today? I'm here to help. Like, into this inanimate object. And I trained myself, and he was the same way.
But you're inventing a new medium. It's trial and error. You see what works.
But we could feel it. And as I started putting out content online, everybody in my company was really angry because we used to be able to do a DVD launch that would sell for millions of dollars. And all of a sudden, it's like, everybody I'm working with is like, oh, okay, so wait a minute. We're not going to make millions of dollars from a DVD. We're going to just make free videos for what? And I'm going, if we don't do this, we will be dead in 5 years. So I don't even want to do another video product launch until we're dominating in social media. I won't even allow it. So for about half a decade, like we do a launch every month now, but for half a decade, I wouldn't even allow a launch until everybody was caught up, including myself. And I would have to go out into public and train myself how to shoot in public and how to shoot videos, hidden camera interactions, and just training ourselves how to shoot a conference. And like, I used to pay, $100 grand to shoot, we had this program called Blueprint. So we're like these little kids, like mid-20s, and somehow we've got to save up, that kind of cash to produce a program like the Blueprint. I remember like the night before I shot it, I couldn't even sleep because there was so much camera gear out that I didn't even feel worthy to be in a shot like this. And if I blew it, 6 figures down the drain and we can't make it back. And, suddenly I'm in there and just terrorized, and I pulled it off, and we made the money back, and it was super scary when we did it. But the point being was we realized, okay, we've got to be able to shoot cheaply. Like, we've got to be able to go into a city and shoot essentially for free and, figure out a middle ground. I was also inspired by Lil Wayne because he always do like an 8 out of 10 verse on everybody's track. So I was like, okay, how can we make not a video that I spent 4 years creating and invest 100 grand into, but how can we create something that once we paid for the initial cost of the cameras, we can shoot just like this video at this point, shooting it essentially for free. And how can we create that and do it regularly?
So let me turn the conversation. You know how passionate I am and about trying to teach the world to become job creators, how to change the mindset. And for the selfish reason, we all benefit from a world where more things have been created that make life better. How should I be leveraging what you've learned in this medium?
Well, I can tell you how we do it, and I can tell you what works for us. So the culture that we try to build in is this, it's sort of a woo-woo Eastern philosophy type idea, which is that,
woo-woo, okay.
Yes, it's extremely woo-woo, like, so.
More woo-woo, okay.
Yeah, so it depends if, you could look at it maybe scientifically somehow. I think of it within like a spiritual sense. So that's just how my mind processes the world. In my mind, there's wisdom, and if you almost want to make yourself like an antenna for that wisdom. When you share it, your antenna grows. So the more that you share, because I see people that are in such deep scarcity. They're like, I've got my great content, and I've got to charge for it, and I can't put it out. And what I say is, look, just share it. And when you share it, it wipes the hard drive, and more stuff comes, and it's better. And then you wipe the hard drive, and more stuff comes, and it's even better. And you get better at delivering it and shooting it and getting it out. Then you can make even premium content with added value. So we do that. But that was such a jump from back in the day when you hoard the content in scarcity. And switching our company culture on that, I had my entire team livid at me, wanted to kill me. And then I even spent over 200 grand to create this website called RC Nation that where we'd pay 200 grand to efficiently give away the ideas for free. And people thought I was crazy, but you just looked at it and you said, it was really quite simple. You looked at it and you said, okay, well, there's YouTube videos coming out. People are going to share. You can either be one of the people sharing and have an audience, or you can be stuck in the old way. And just because of that, I just said, that's it. It was so clear and obvious. So like a lot of the things that you say, for example, when you start looking at the future, say self-driving cars, we see it starting to happen. And you don't want to believe it, but you best believe it.
I just had somebody drive me all the way up to Oregon, so I could pretend what would the experience be, what would I expect the car to be, what's that life like, Because it's not just that somebody's making those cars. Nobody watching this probably is going to start their own autonomous vehicle company. But there's all the other service industries. I tell the story in Disrupt You that when beginning of the PCs, where the best engineers were writing code and were making software, and oh, there should be a spreadsheet, oh, there should be word processing. I mean, the basic building blocks of what became the end of the 20th century. I had a buddy who said, wait, people are buying a $2,000 machine for their house? I'm going to make a dust cover, a plastic dust cover. And in the beginning, everybody got a dust cover because this was, after owning a car, this was the most expensive thing you had. And then when floppies came out, he says, I'm going to make a little plastic box that you put your floppies in. And when the mouse came out, oh my God, I'm going to make a little piece of plastic. He sold his company for $135 million without ever, to Rubbermaid, without ever learning how to use a PC. And you say, well, that was one moment in history. I thought of him when the iPhone came out and saw all those white accessories. $16 billion of accessories. That little plastic case that you put your phone in that costs 8 cents to make and you pay $29 for, let that sink in. That's a guy like Billy just doing it again. So there's always opportunities where when you see big seismic movements, you know, billions going into VR, billions going into the Internet of Things connecting, nobody's thinking of how to connect the dots, you know, and those crumbs are billion-dollar crumbs. Because again, we're all interconnected. So you can be the first one out there, and there are so many new fields, new opportunities to solve problems.
Have you followed Dr. Dre's career at all? He runs Beats headphones.
I know the guys at Beats. I know the guys that miraculously remember the London Olympics. They went out to the swimming pool and every swimmer somehow had Beats headphones and a bulge in their non-swim pants. And the bulge was in their cash envelope in their thing. They weren't a sponsor of the Olympics.
I love what Dr. Dre did because he was able to, like, he could see the writing on the wall when his old company called Death Row Records was just going in this
Jimmy
weird...
Iovine's probably the smartest guy in the music business.
Got it. So Jimmy Iovine, Dr. Dre, these guys, like, they saw the writing on the wall for Death Row Records. He got out. I heard he left with almost nothing. I don't know if that's true. Got out, created a new record company, and then hired a white dude to do rap, which totally risked his reputation. Blew up with that, and then realized that the money was no longer the music, switched to using his name to do headphones, and then blew up with headphones. And I think they sold that to Apple for around $1 billion.
So let's deconstruct it. Here's how I view that, and it's not different. It's just a different take on the same facts. Unlike Coca-Cola, which for 100 years has been reinforcing the red logo and all that, okay? Somebody at a record label has to take a kid that you never heard of and figure out how to get the whole world to know about him on Tuesday when the record drops, okay? And Jimmy Iovine, the best that ever was at doing that, okay? So now you suddenly have this tremendous skill set of creating a brand from scratch to hit it in the exact time. So two things that are very unusual, only done by music and movies. And movies does it by brute force of spending a fortune. Music never had that advantage. Now nobody's buying music. So you can say, it's over, let's go home, what do we have? But if you deconstruct your skill set and you say, wait a second, I can create a new brand, I know this audience real well, what's out there? And lo and behold, no one had differentiated headphones or earbuds, okay? Apple had done it slightly by making their whole ad campaign about white earbuds. They didn't say what iTunes was, they didn't say what an iPod was, it was too complicated. They just had those bright psychedelic colors with the white earbuds, and that became a status symbol. So suddenly he said, wait, we can take all this and we can make this a hip, cool brand. We know how to get it on what's now called influencers and all the things that you do. And yeah, you create a $1 billion brand. Now let's look at the Instagram, YouTube thing, where you can have a young gal with some makeup sitting alone and instantly challenge a 100-year-old makeup brand and do giant dollars. Where it used to be a celebrity could license their name to perfume and make some quick dollars at Christmas, you're now having celebrity clothing brands that are outdoing everything else. You're having internet stars, again, not making money on the content, but making money by creating a brand that stands for something and means something. And you're going to see this with greater frequency because you can dial in and target your audience so specifically. I mean, everybody has their new, look at what people like and make a t-shirt, business. And I was never thought that was a great thing to train anybody to do and seemed very short term. Until the other day in my feed, I go, oh my God, I have to get that t-shirt. Somebody, nailed one for exactly what my interests were.
What was it?
It was The Snoopy character is dressed as the Beatles crossing Abbey Road. You know,
Got it. Okay.
Pretty niche and specific.
Well,
and
to be discussed later
I'm sure
after the
they
video.
Had no Charles Schultz rights, but it was a cool T-shirt. I'll tell you what the epiphany was for me of how big this was. And again, I've been on the internet doing this stuff forever. Was at the time when Napster was destroying the music labels, and we couldn't get anybody to buy a song. iTunes wasn't out yet. No one would buy a song for any amount of money. A guy named Ralph Simon came with a brilliant idea, but would they buy 20 seconds of a song for $2 called a ringtone? And ringtones the first year, with only 200 songs to choose from, did $1.6 billion from something that no one had ever monetized. You couldn't sell an album, you couldn't sell a song, but a couple of seconds, you can make $1 billion. So the lesson here isn't to copy what was done before. It's to really see how can you reuse, repurpose, retarget, use data to drive rational decisions, and you don't have to be in tech. Everybody watching this, congratulations, you're in tech. You're watching me thanks to the brilliance of the technology. You're watching a phone first thing in the morning, last thing in bed, you're already in tech. Whether you're selling food, clothing, you're in tech. Get used to it. And that's so excitement.
Yeah. I mean, linking the 2 points, by the way, you said you'd like feel the change. For me, when I really think about it, it's like more than feeling it, it's like getting turned on by it and hating when there is no change.
Yeah,
So it's
Julien
like-
taught me to be comfortable with discomfort. The new safe zone is the non-safe zone.
Exactly. And that was for me, I mean, growing up again in Switzerland, it's like I got so bored by anything status quo. It's like if I was like the same, if I was like in the safe, like, oh, I'm following that route, I just hated it. And I was like, I need to go outside of that. I need to find those areas of discomfort. So even hanging on to old models, like, oh, I don't want to put out my content. You know, if I put out my content, there's the sacred content. Now what? What you're doing is like you're trying to stay in that safe zone. I like it because now I'm like, now there's that adversity, now I'm alive. If I hang on to the content and I resist it, I'm bored, I'm in the safe zone.
He really lives this on another level, though. Like, you got to
push it
see
far.
it. I mean,
Well, if you don't disrupt yourself, somebody else will disrupt you. If on the road to progress, if you stand still, you get run over. I mean, it's that simple.
Really linking all this together, it's like one, hating any kind of comfort. So it's like for anyone watching, it's like any kind of comfort, be disgusted by that. Like that is like where the
I
discomfort
mean, he's
should come
really
from.
there. Like, his version, he's like disgusted.
Well, you need that, and then
by
you need the
comfort.
trust that you will find the solution in the new situation where you're out of your comfort zone. And for me, like linking everything together, it's like success with women. That was step one. It's like you're going out, you're interacting with all these new people. You have no idea what's going to happen. So it's like embrace that, transfer that to business, and literally, again, build on what you were just saying too. It's like all the skills go hand in hand with like pivoting from like success with women, like social interactions. For me, everything came from that. Learning about, again, what people respond to, what people like. Link that to branding. Link that to speaking in front of a camera. Push, you know, like say different shock humor you'd say use on a girl, like interacting with a girl. Use that on marketing. Go a little too far. Take those same
he went a little
skills,
too far.
spin it around, create a new channel, build it. It's like everything goes hand in hand.
Say you've got somebody at home, and they're watching this, super inspired, right? Like, wow, change, thinking different stuff, you know, right? Pumped up. I got that, you know, that kind of buzz going, that, you know, of inspiration that something like this is intended to create. It's hit the mark. So they're sitting there, maybe early 20s, late teens, maybe even late 20s, 30s, whatever.
Maybe they were laid off in their 40s and trying to figure out how to get back on track.
Okay, so they're sitting there, and they're saying, this is so cool, but where do I start?
Great question. You have to switch and take every obstacle in your life. If you have problems, congratulations, you have a head start, and turn every obstacle into an opportunity. And here's how you do this. You write down today, not tomorrow, today, right now, the second this video stops, 3 problems in your life. It's that simple. Today I was in traffic, I hated that. My mom called when I was supposed to take my medicine. I don't remember whether I took my medicine or not. You know, 3 basic problems. But you do this every day for a month. And what that exercise forces you to do is exactly what you were talking about. Is, well, I wrote the obvious ones. What is a problem that I didn't think about because I'm so used to doing it the same way and not thinking about it, I didn't see it as a problem. For you to make it through 30 days, you have a list of 90 universal problems. And the 2 that I gave as example was, you know, 2 guys sitting in traffic in Tel Aviv going, man, I hate traffic, I hate this commute. Wait, the phone company knows your car's over there and my phone's over here, so they'll tell you to go right, me to go left. And that was the basic for Waze, sold for $1 billion, okay? It was looking at a problem that we all complain about everywhere, and they solved it very simple. And you don't have to be an engineer. The pill one was another reader that I heard from that took a Happy Meal watch, put it on a pill lid, so every time you close the pill bottle, it shows you how many minutes since it's been open. Oh, I opened it 4 minutes ago. Yeah, I took my pill. Oh, it's been 8 hours. I didn't take my pill. And now there's a Bluetooth version so that it can alert me to say, you know, Grandma, you didn't take your pill, and if she figures out why, she'll stop taking, so you call more often. But the whole point is, by the end of this month, you'll have 90 ideas. Then sort on 2 axes. What impacts the most people? Okay? You know, they forgot my anchovies on my pizza again. It's not a big problem, you know. Healthcare, oh, that's a big problem. And then what are you most passionate about? Because it's not going to be easy. There is no easy path where you just sit down and, 30 days to thinner thighs. You know, I'm not selling snake oil here. I'm not selling a book to make money on a book. I'm trying to make a better world by inspiring people to do the heavy lifting. But if you try, then what's absolutely going to happen is that idea that you start with, turns out it's not a great idea. But you'll go farther into the jungle, farther into the woods, exploring that than anybody bothered to. And that's where you discover the gold. That's where you see that nugget of, I wouldn't have seen it from the outside. But now that I'm this far, I now see what it is. And it's those pivots that all the big businesses that you take for granted today started at that moment. Nobody walked into VC, well, there are a couple people. Here's a business plan and we're going to follow it page by page. Smartest man in the world, Reid Hoffman, he can do that. The rest of us mere mortals will stumble through it by persistence and insight. We all benefit from the creativity that you haven't shared with the world yet. You're the only person that lived your life, and it's taken your whole life to get to this point. So put it to use. Thanks for the opportunity.
Amazing.
Guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.